Hello and welcome back to the How to Get an Analytics Job podcast. I'm your podcast co-host, John David Arianson. And in this podcast episode, our guest lecturer is Fabio Alamini. He is an experienced analytics manager who is currently working as a manager of analytics for Electrolux. He's actually come on the podcast before, and when he came on the podcast, let's say maybe about a year ago, he was actually the analytics manager for Volvo Finance. What we're going to be talking about in this episode is how he thinks about his analytics hiring process. So for the first segment, I'm just going to talk to Fabio and kind of unpack how he thinks about hiring new analysts. Now, this is a really interesting conversation because he's hired both high-level experienced senior-level positions and people who are brand new and fresh out of college. Then we're going to hop into the interactive section where we're going to do a mock interview with one of my Greensboro College students. And then we're going to wrap up the episode with our social media manager, Al Bellamy. And we did something a little bit different this podcast episode in that our viewers actually submitted recordings of themselves asking a question. So if you want to join in on the conversation, head over to LinkedIn and look up How to Get an Analytics Job. You can follow our landing page and actually contribute to upcoming podcast episodes. This podcast is brought to you by Panoply. Panoply is a platform that allows you to connect to 60 different data sources, where you can study your data in SQL, visualize it in tools like Power BI or Tableau, or even analyze it in your favorite coding program. Click the link in the description down below and you can get a free 14-day trial to panoply.io. One more thing before we actually jump into the podcast though. Make sure that you subscribe and ring the bell if you want to get notified of upcoming podcast episodes. And also, if you're getting any type of value out of the podcast, the best thing that you can do to give back to us is leave a comment in the comments section down below, or even share this with your network. Without further ado, let's jump into the podcast episode. So Fabio, what is going on in your world?
Well, I think things have changed a little bit since the last time we spoke. Last fall, I actually changed my job. So I was working with Volvo, and now I'm with Electrolux in Charlotte. So different industry, a lot of things are different, but some things are the same. The passion about data, the opportunities to monetize the data, and I'm still in finance-ish. So it's always good to mix finance, data, and analytics opportunities there.
Yeah, well, it's funny because that's actually my weakest spot is financial analysis. I'm much more on like the sales and marketing kind of side of things. And actually, I think part of the reason why I wanted to have you back on or kind of why we reconnected is that you're interested in having the Greensboro College cohort do some data analysis for you maybe next semester or the semester after, right?
Yeah, I think we are always trying to look at creative ways of tackling some of the demands. And you mentioned that finance might not be your strength, but today finance, there's no solid line between finance and other departments. So finance is very embraced with sales, with operations, and sometimes it's hard to define where one stop and the other begins. So that's why finance is always very involved with IT and data projects as well.
Yeah. So are you still, I know you were a manager or analytics manager at Volvo Finance. Are you still kind of in a similar role?
Yeah, similar role, although my team is a little smaller right now. So I used to have a pretty strong world-class team of 6-7 individuals. We are always trying to bring someone for short-term assignments or someone from other piece of the world to come and work with us. Now we are basically building the team. So we just got two new members last March. So 1 month ago, and we have other consultant and one intern. So a little smaller team.
So we're catching you right at the right time, because I remember you posting, and you might have actually reached out to me via LinkedIn messages, but I remember resharing the opportunity for your organization. But this is just kind of what I wanted to get deep into, is that So you're currently building up an analytics team. And this month, we're talking to people who actually hire analysts. And I want to kind of get like a behind the scenes peek at what is your thought process? How do you build? What are you looking for? How do you identify if the people interviewing actually have those things, and kind of what's your overall process? So I guess,
Sure.
yeah, how do you go about, I guess let's back up first. What are you looking for in an analyst typically?
I mean, I would say that because I'm still in finance, I need to have a mix of skills. Very often I cannot have someone that is so specialist in one topic because in our organization, in our department, things are very dynamic. So you need to have different type of skills that go from technical, soft skills, and other to be able to be a strong candidate. But depending on the level, like that, there are multiple things that are taken consideration. And having a great attitude is one of them, right? I mean, we can teach people systems, softwares, reports, business models, but attitude and a good approach, a strong mindset is a little harder to teach.
So how can you signal that though? So like I get that, yeah, if you hire someone, you're going to be spending 8 hours a day with them. If they're like your direct report and you're in the same room. How can someone go about signaling, or like what are the cues that you pick up on of, oh, this person's got a good attitude versus, oh, this person is insufferable and I do not want them in my workspace?
That's a great question. I mean, but unfortunately, there's no magic formula, right? You always have the risk. You're trying to do as best as you can to identify some of the approach. But to me, some things I always like highlight some of the items. For example, how do you like to learn things? Are you the person that you like to learn by yourself, that you're creative the way you learn, or you're someone that, I learned this because someone sent me to a 2 weeks classroom, and that's why I learned that. So I try to identify that. I really try to identify what's the individual's passion, what really you like to do, and how that relates to work. And that has been amazing, especially recently. Like I've been in a lot of interviews, and hearing people coming and say, hey, my favorite movie, it is Moneyball, or like it tells a lot. And then why is that? And people talking about data, sports, analytics, and perhaps a little bit of Brad Pitt, but just as an example to me, like how you can get that. You're trying to understand how people like to learn, what are they passionate about, what they do, for example, extracurricular type of work. So, for example, I'm not saying only about, I volunteer and helping the society. Not only that, that's important, but also, for example, when people are very interested about hackathon data competitions, or people like to publish dashboards online because they have fun. So you start to get like a profile on the passion and how they like to learn and how they integrate with the community. So to me, that tells a lot about the individual.
Yeah, we've actually gone pretty deep into analytics portfolios. So what I've been teaching, I guess I'll give you kind of a very quick breakdown of like my methodology of teaching these students. So last semester, we did a class called Case Studies in Business Analytics. So I started teaching them like Analytics 101 the first month, and on top of that, Power BI, because Power BI has, the data connection, the visualization, and the model tab. So that kind of gives them like a high level overview. And then we worked on a case study where they studied my email marketing data for about a month or so, and we wrapped up the semester with Tableau case studies. So part of their final grade was they had to have at least 3 Tableau public visualizations, and then the featured one, I gave a grade breaking down basically 2 things, so form and function. And a lot of them actually did sports analytics, because I think like I think 3/4 of my class are actually student athletes.
Right.
So, and then this semester, we're now doing real world consulting engagements, which I had you in mind for, but maybe we'll be able to pick up a project with you next semester. So the students are actually getting to work, and I'm really proud of these students, because I'm there to kind of facilitate, but they're doing a lot of the heavy lifting, and it's stressful for me because I'm pulling back and I feel almost like a lazy professor. But the more that I intervene and hold their hand, I feel like I'm robbing them of actually developing some real world work experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great mix. It's a great approach. I mean, imagine if you have had this chance when you were in the beginning of your career, right? I mean, how long it took me to get exposed to these tools and to understand what are the possibilities, like, in the world. So in the corporate world. So it's just amazing that this I call they kids. I mean, but these kids are now having the opportunity to learn them pretty early, before sometimes even have a uh, practical work, that they can really do on something that looks like a hobby, doesn't looks like that they are forced to do, or they are pressured to do, and at the same time teach them a lot of good lessons, not only about things that I mentioned earlier, about the attitude, about the passion, but they will come across challenges that you face on real world, like data not structure, or you're analyzing something that you thought your result would be one thing, and it comes as it becomes something completely different, and you try to stress the results. So it's very interesting how they have the chance to experience that very early, and how that can change the corporate world in a couple of years, where the millennials or in the new generations will continue to dominate office space.
Well, I think it's actually kind of the competitive advantage of younger people in that they grew up as digital natives, so they understand technology.
True. I completely agree. I mean, I think our generation, perhaps, we are exposed a little different, but we got some exposure to that, even like the video games and the gamification, how much is that important, how much that relates to data analytics. So I think that's certainly important, but we cannot ignore the fact that that's only one set of skills that you need to have to succeed on your professional career, right? I mean, yeah, they perhaps have a competitive advantage because they are very under the technical details on every single new tool that comes across. But at the same time, they still need to develop the understanding of the business and how to influence the business, how to lead projects, how to lead people. So it's a great skills, and it's a great start, and therefore you have opportunity to develop in other areas.
So, okay, what I just kind of picked up out of what you just said is leadership is something that's very important to you. Do you have like a go-to question, or is it like tell me about a time where you had to, I don't know, overcome hardship? Like, do you have a question that kind of gets at those softer skills?
I mean, not really, because a lot of times, we are hiring people that obviously they are very in the beginning of their careers, and they did not have the leadership experience at this point, right? So naturally, we're trying to understand, hey, how you have, when you had to lead like a project, or when you work in a group, and you have to step up, situations that has happened in the past. But at the same time, leadership is something that you develop, that a lot of times in the beginning of their career, the leadership is more about indirect leadership, because you need to influence someone else, or you need to influence a department without not being their direct manager, or their boss, or whatever it is. So it's a good mix of skills. I don't have a specific question. I mean, I really like to understand how people approach to problems, and how people collaborate. And to me, as we continue to build more and more lean organizations, that's a skill that will bring them naturally to a leadership position.
Okay, yeah, it's funny because one of our previous guests, I'm really big on leadership, and I think that's kind of my person. Like, I'm somewhat disagreeable, just personality wise. So I guess that kind of leads me more towards leadership roles. But the flip side of that is kind of like what you just said, collaboration and teamwork. So I guess, are you saying kind of both of those, you need to kind of balance that a little bit?
Yeah, and sometimes you need to balance depending on the situation as well, right? I mean, I think that's how my teams have operating, because again, we are finance, we are very embracing the business. Sometimes you have so many dotted lines, because sometimes you as a finance person, you have a dotted line to the CFO, but you actually are part of the operation. So your manager, your boss is not really on the finance department. So finance, per my experiences actually have been more as a lean organization, embrace with other departments, and therefore we need to be a little more lean. So I feel that leadership is something that, yeah, you have some of skills and that you're born with, right? Obviously, and some other things that you can really develop. But leadership is something to me that comes natural. You don't force, you don't say something. You can, obviously you can train, you can get better, of course, completely agree. But it seems like the moves need to be more natural, where, for example, if you're in a team and you progress and you're working well, you're naturally will become a leader. Even before someone gives you a title, people will come to you, you become a reference. You're going to start to coach young talent, you're going to start to coach people that are just new in the organization, being mentor for peers and so forth. So to me, again, natural leadership aspect of it.
See, that it's funny because I mean, how many episodes have we had? We've got like over 150 YouTube videos at this point. So I've been thinking about this stuff for a long time. I would call that influence. So like first, and it's interesting that you're hiring entry-level people or like people early stage. And I do want to kind of like rope Christina in on this conversation, and let's kind of coach her around like how to interview. But when you're starting out a new position, you have to build credibility. And you have to make this shift. And I think this is crucial in your career to where people will start to come to you. So you need to like be right like enough times for people to say, oh, this person's legit. They know what they're talking about. And then you slowly kind of get into that leadership position to where you're seen as the subject matter expert in a specific given area.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm sorry, maybe I focus a lot that I hire a lot of entry level, but in my team I have senior people too. People that have 6, 7, 8 years of experience. People are really senior, people that are really to become managers. And at my previous job, the majority of the people that left my team were because they are ready to become managers or leaders, and they found those positions inside the organization. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned a good point. You influence, but a leader also inspire people. You inspire people. You're a reference on the technical side. You're someone that can maximize the person performance by coaching them, by sharing your expectations, by challenging them, by extract the best of each of the skills and developing the blind spots and perhaps the weakness.
Okay, cool. I love that. So what is the difference kind of in your head of hiring a more senior level versus an entry level? Like, are there different kind of ways that you identify if they're a good fit?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're more someone senior, the person already have to have some experience. It probably not necessarily in your business understanding, but conceptually in some of the things that you're trying to achieve. Also, the level of expectations that you have in someone a little more senior is that, oh, I found a problem. The senior guy, not only he or she found the problem, but he already comes with a recommendation on how to fix, or even better, he or she already fixed by themselves because they are a little more senior. So there are multiple characteristics that differentiate seniors from non-seniors, and one of them is that also we mentioned the ability to influence others, the ability to inspire others. That's something that comes naturally more in someone that's more used to a specific task, a specific department, or just a specific concept.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was about to say, if you're making judgment calls of like, if you're brand new and you're like, oh, I found a solution to a problem, it's like that's probably not gonna work because you don't know the context. If you're brand new, you don't know the skill set or the company, and you're like making, off the fly decisions. That's it's probably not a good thing.
And naturally is also sometimes the way you behave. You're just more. You have experienced some situations more than once, so sometimes you just know how to handle it better. Whatever is how you position yourself in a meeting, or whatever you deal with a conflict. So yeah, there are some difference, And it's interesting you say, because my brother is facing like the same challenges as he's getting very senior on his role, and we are talking a lot about this. What differentiates a senior than a no senior. So we list a lot of topics that we discuss. So it's interesting that you say, but at the same time, sometimes it's very good to have non-seniors, because they don't have old habits.
Right.
They don't have something that, oh, I'm gonna do this just because it's that how it has been done, or that's how someone taught me 5 years ago. They question everything. They are sometimes more skeptical, that they why is doing like that. Okay, it's not that because they have no, how you say, like they have no backup, or they have never been exposed to something, so sometimes they question things more.
Right. And they're not even questioning, like, are you sure that's how you want to do it? They're like, no, explain to me, how does this work? And then as you're saying it out loud, you're like, oh,
Yeah,
this is silly.
yeah,
This is silly.
why is that?
Right.
So it's great. I mean, it's great. It's a great mix. I mean, I think I'm fortunate enough that I work with all levels. And very important, I've seen a lot of people like starting like interns and leaving like managers. Like it's just amazing to see people's development. Fantastic. It's I love it. It's a favorite piece of the job.
Well, yeah, I would say there's like different energies for, so have you ever heard of like hustle luck, or like just hustle in general? Of course you've heard of hustle. So it's like when you're early in your career, you need to be throwing out a lot of energy and doing a lot of things, to where like once you get more into a senior role, if you threw out that same energy, that's actually comes off as kind of reckless. Like you need to slow down and exercise your judgment, versus just like, let's go and hustle and like turn over enough
And
rocks, and then
struggle,
you'll
yeah,
find things.
exactly. I mean, it's when you're young, I sometimes I really like to see them struggle on a good way. Like okay, here's a task we need to complete, and you could do yourself like in 1 hour, but it's good to see them struggling for hours and hours, understanding what are the ins and outs on what they are doing, like getting better, developing the data literacy aspect, and questioning everything. So it's funny you mentioned that, because it's certainly very precise that people struggle more, I'd say. So they work very hard, but it's as important that you need to learn how to work smarter. It's not the number of hours you put, it's the output of your work very often that matters most. So so it's you need to work very smart on top of working hard.
Yeah, that's what I'm struggling with right now, is that like these student projects, I could do them like that. But I'm realizing like an area of weakness for me is like explaining the projects in the context. Because I've been working, like one of the clients, like the client that Christina's working with right now, I've worked with them for 5 years, and I've literally built their analytics infrastructure from the ground up. So there's like a lot of just like intuition I have about it that I haven't expressed into words in like multiple years, which is it's weird. I kind of feel like a lot of the people who are watching this are entry level, but I want to make sure that we're incorporating both advice for people who are entry level, mid level, and then also senior as well. But let's loop Christina in on this conversation. So do you have any advice for, I guess, let me ask this question. Have you hired people directly out of college? Because Christina is about to finish up her senior year.
If I've done, yeah, I mean, sure. More than once so I've done, I mean, once I even like make an offer for a guy that he was not in college. I mean, the guy was good, great mindset, learning by himself, tons of stuff. So I think I have the chance to hire people from the spectrums at this point.
Okay. So, all right, let's do kind of like a mock interview setting, because I know we talked before we got on air about some typical questions that you ask. So, Christina, are you ready for this?
Yes. How's my audio?
Audio sounds good.
Okay.
All right. So, Fabio, I'll let you treat Christina like she is someone who just walked into your. Actually, now that we're in the pandemic, or I guess we're post-pandemic now, or 3/4 of the way through it, I think Zoom interviews are much more common now. So this might actually not be an unusual way for someone who's in college meeting a hiring manager. So what would that conversation, how would you kick that off, Fabio?
How would I kick that off? I mean, what's your background, Christina? Like, tell me a little bit about you. I mean, where you come from and what you're looking for.
So I will be graduating in May, and I'll be graduating with a degree in mathematics and minors in business analytics and also the humanities. And I've always been really into numbers and, what works with numbers. So when I entered the business analytics minor, I was really intrigued by how you could turn, raw data into these really cool visualizations and get insights from them. And yeah.
That's great. I mean,
what do you think, Fabio?
It's a great mix. It's a great mix of skills, right? It's a good start. I mean, I wish I had your resume so I could I could already look, okay, what are some of the projects you have done, but maybe you can talk a little bit, and perhaps you can share with me some of the work you have done or published via Tableau Public or any Power BI report or Click, or what tools you have been exposed so far.
Yes, I have my Tableau Public profile, which has a couple of visualizations that I've worked on over the past, I think, almost a year now. And I've worked mainly with, smaller data sets involving sports statistics from my school, and also just numbers and data from small companies or small organizations. I did one project for a nonprofit here in Greensboro. It was sort of a volunteer work type of project where I was able to create a data collection system to get some information for them from the people involved in their organization, and was able to turn those responses into a dashboard that could help them visualize the impact they were making as a nonprofit.
Cool. I mean, a lot of different stuffs. And as you went through this process, Christina, what was your favorite part of the project? Manipulating the data, transforming the data, or perhaps working more on the charts and on the data visualization aspect. Where did you enjoy most as you work on those projects?
I definitely enjoyed the data visualization aspect the most, and then using that to really uncover insights from the data. It was a bit of a learning curve at first, trying to figure out, how to work. I think we started with Power BI and then jumped into Tableau. So I have been working with Tableau mostly for the past couple months, so I have a lot more experience with that. But yeah, definitely enjoyed creating some cool visualizations and getting insights from them.
Okay, that's great. And any specific insights as you build those visualizations? For example, you're working with the data and you're so into scrubbing the data that you did not notice a trend or just had an aha moment when you put a visualization. Did you come across anything that you wouldn't have noticed in your data or in your analysis without a good visualization tool?
Yeah, so I recently did one project that involved data about social media marketing and how it was impacting sales. And so we had different data sources from Facebook, advertising, and Amazon, and I forget what the other one is, but there was a couple of sources, and Amazon would just constantly come on top of everything. And I was just really surprised to see really just how much of an impact it had on their sales.
Okay. I think we are going very fast here, right? I think at this point...
let's pause. Yeah, Fabio. So let's give some feedback. Let's get some meta commentary around how is Christina answering these questions? Are what's good, what's could use a little bit of work?
I think it's a good answer. It seems that she's being very honest, she's doing stuff because she's interesting about. She's not only doing school, she's doing voluntary work. I like your background, as I mentioned earlier, it's important today that you have a good set of different tools, and you come with math, you come with the business analytics and with data visualization. So I mean, those types of skills can be applied in multiple different projects, So sometimes you might be more focused on the math because really we need to go deep on statistics and create models. Sometimes it's more about the data visualization, but also you have the background on the business analytics that makes you understand all the stages of the work. So to me, that's positive. I don't think I have any major concern at this point, John. So
okay. Well, okay. I think that Christina, you're doing a good job, and it's funny because you're one of the most you volunteer to be in that. So Fabio, we call this the hot seat, and we started doing this last semester, where we'd work through a case study, and then I would pull a chair out to the front of the room, and we would do like a mock interview, because I think that's something that was missing from my schooling experience of having to be put on the spot and think and actually get it wrong. And the reason I wanted people up in front of the class, so there's additional pressure, because there's pressure when you're interviewing, So I think that, Christina, you could have given a little bit more context. But overall, I mean, you've gotten exponentially better. So for example, with the nonprofit impact analysis, which I love that you framed it up correctly. So what you did was you quantified the impact of a nonprofit, but you could have taken it a step further, because you could have said, well, Bill Gates is really shaken up, or I'm like, this is expert tier level how I would explain it to a client that I was pitching. So when I'm talking to nonprofits, I would say, Bill Gates has really shaken up the way that nonprofit industry works, or space works. So now funders are very fixated on their return on investment. So what I did was I worked with a local nonprofit, helped them develop a data capture process, and then built a dashboard that potential funders could interact with to understand the impact of this nonprofit. The ultimate goal was to increase the amount of funding coming to the nonprofit organization. Actually, Fabio, I kind of want to get your feedback. Critique the critiquer here. What did you think of that?
I think it makes sense. It's you guys are throwing me on fire here that I don't have any background on her, but you're right. I mean, for example, when I get resume, I already look at some of the items, so it's like shift my questions a little bit more for what you're trying to describe. And what the way we like to interview is like 95% of the times I don't interview by myself, right? We have a panels where, okay, you interview with me first and someone else later. So we very often we define what type of questions each of us will make, so we don't duplicate and we're trying to extract the value. So you are correct, John. Like you could give a little more context, or hey, this is the goal, and that. So you could have said what I want to listen without me have to ask, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does make sense, and probably to me the way, if I think as a 30 minutes interview, and I know probably speak about 5 minutes. If you think about a 30 minutes interview, first background, tell me about you, tell me about very often after the candidate speaks, I come and I talk a little bit about what you're looking for, and explain what's my background, because we can already start to feel if we have a match or if we don't, right? Mm-hmm. And from there, trying to go on more specific questions, and also shifting to the candidate to start throwing questions on me. I think you get a lot about it. So just to summarize, background first, give me a little bit about telling a little bit about the position later, and then probably trying to get a little more personality, outside the technical, and opening to questions so the conversation can flow better.
Okay, on that last note of kind of the Q&A, because the Q&A goes both ways, and I actually, last podcast episode, one of our viewers asked, what is a good question to ask a company? I was a little bit stumped by that. Are there any questions? Are there any like kind of conversational threads that would impress you about a potential candidate?
Depends about the position, and what I like questions that are honest. If you're just googling, hey, top 10 questions to make on an interview and applying that to me, I don't see value. I think to me you need to look at the job description, look at your personality, and trying to customize questions that match with that. You need to try to extract from me what the work environment looks like, what the team culture looks like, what tools we use, and what we are looking for. So then you can also align your expectations about the project. But I don't really have okay, that's an amazing question. To me, great questions are the ones that are aligned with the first 20 minutes, that I don't feel you have all those questions even before you start. It's important to have some, right? And it's natural that you're going to have some. But it's the most important questions to me are about the conversation that you're having and about the organization and the department that you're trying to join.
Yeah. So the question that I like to answer, like when in the Q&A from last episode, I said I would ask a company if there are opportunities to continue to learn and deepen your knowledge base. And then Al kind of helped me out here. He said, tell me a little bit, or can you tell me a little bit more about your company culture, or like what are your company values?
Great question. Yeah, great questions. Sometimes that's the reason you move between organizations, right? Where do we stand? What is the culture? What are the opportunities? Obviously, just be careful with those questions. If you're applying, it's your first job, and say like, okay, do you see myself being a manager 1 year from now? Like, it's a tough question, like to make, right? So I think it's you phrase very well. Like, what are the opportunities for development? What success mean? Like, what is the short-term needs? Like, what you need to get done in 3 months? What you need to get done in 12 months? That tells you a lot about where you're coming, growth opportunities, what are the projects we are working. So very small questions makes the interview flow a lot better.
See, that actually was brought up in maybe 3 or 4 podcast episodes ago. One of our guests, like we did another, so we do these kind of mock interviews. We'll either do like a portfolio review, resume review, LinkedIn, or like mock interview. One of the guests for the podcast asked the student, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And the student was like, well, I want to be a manager. I want to move up into management. And it's like, well, that may not be the most tactful response, because that may be signaling to the person interviewing you that you want their job.
And some people might feel like, oh, you're such a strong candidate that I see that happen in 2 years. So like, okay, I'm in trouble now, right? So people can think on that way. So again, that's why to me it's not about the manager and the title. It's about growth. It's about what leadership opportunities, how can I develop this type of skill? Hey, I want to become a leader. What you can develop on that topic in the next 12, 24, 36 months, So these to me are great questions that you're not giving an answer, but you're challenging the person that is interviewing you on how he or she will help you to develop an area that you're interested in.
Right, and you're kind of also signaling that you're not that enthused by the specific job opportunity in front of you. Like you see it as just a stepping stone to get to the next thing. And the interviewer may be like, well, that's a little bit of a red flag, because they may not do a fantastic job at that.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. You need to read the room. You need to read the room very well, and it's harder on Zoom, because perhaps that's the best answer. If, okay, I know that in 12 months I'll be out of my job and I need to have a successor, perhaps that's the best question that I might want. The best answer that I might want is someone that say, hey, in 12 months I'm gonna be in your position. So again, you need to really read the room. You need to understand the job description, what is expected to you, what seniority is necessary, and from there you manage, during the interview process.
Awesome. Well, I think, do you have any further questions for Christina? I know that she's got to leave pretty soon for a meeting. Christina, do you have any other questions, concerns? She's on mute right now.
No, I'm good. I think all my questions are answered. I think it's always it's always helpful for me to like have somebody ask me those type of questions and to just think about like what I've been doing the past couple months and how to put it into words.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being in the hot seat, and I'll let you go about your day. Class dismissed.
Thank you. Thank you, Fabio.
Thank you.
All right, Albert, you're up. And we're actually, for those of you guys listening on YouTube or on the podcasting networks, we are doing a new segment. Well, same segment, different twist. We're now having people submit video questions. And Albert, I'll let you take it from here.
All right. Hey, Fabio, how you doing?
Good. How about you?
Not too bad. So a few things have changed since the last time you were on the show.
Yeah, it changed. I mean, I was highlighting earlier, changing jobs, changing city, but the same, the same energy, the same passion, the same mix of stuff to work, finance, data, business development, all the great stuff.
Yeah. So we've got you on video this time. I know last time you were audio only, so you probably could have worn your PJs for that interview.
Yeah,
So
I was actually with John on Greensboro HQ. So
well, that was pre-COVID. So
this was before the world fell apart.
Come in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was just a couple of weeks. Yeah, it was just a couple of weeks. But even that, I was only on the mic and with the audio. He was looking at me like I was feeling the pressure for sure.
Yeah, he has that effect on people, I think.
I guess so.
So we do viewer questions now. I'm sure John David filled you in. Sorry I had to drop in late, but so we have 7 today, just cause. And so we started a new thing where some of them are sending in their questions via video. So we're gonna have to, at some point, I'll give you the text only questions, and then we'll crack through to the screen share, and we'll see if we don't screw this up. But so our first one is Siddish Bangle. Siddish wants to know, he says, location seems to play a big role in the hiring process. A company may not be in the same location as me, and he has his doubts. Even when I say I'm willing to relocate to the company's location, do hiring managers feel hesitant to hire people the further away they are?
Fair question. I mean, for sure, things have changed. I mean, I probably would answer that very different 12 months ago. My suggestion on that case, just make sure very early that you're willing, that you're open, that the main location is not where you are today. Trying to understand, even for your own decision, if the company is willing to support you with the relocation, or if you have to do by yourself, because that might influence your own decision. But I also like to think, focus on things you can control. Right, you cannot control if the hiring person will discard you just because you're in a different city. You don't know that. So just focus on things that you have control, having a good interview, make the point across as early as you can for people that are hiring. Perhaps, again, if you have the chance, if you have the name of the hiring manager, or if you have a connection that could introduce, it's something that you can share. Say, hey, apply to this job. I know I'm not on this position, not in this location, but I'm willing to discuss whatever is a flexible environment, or perhaps relocating. But it's a valid questions, guys. And being the other side of the table, I've seen more than once where we go through the end of the process and we say, okay, now you relocate, and the person basically say, no, I'm not interested anymore. So they're both sides, from the candidates and from the hiring managers as well, that a lot of people also like just say at very end, after you spending a lot of time under the process, by saying, actually, I changed my mind, I don't want to relocate. So it's okay that hiring managers might have a reservation, but it's important to align very early in the process.
Gotcha. So we have Alec Chilka, and he's asking, how has the resume screening process changed these days based on the dynamically growing IT market, especially in the analytics domain and with the influx of new talent and students coming in?
Great question too. What I would say, being very honest, when we post jobs, sometimes I have 120, 125 applicants, So what differentiates you, all the resumes, after I look 20, all of them look the same sometimes, So trying to highlight something that is unique to you, trying to customize, just don't download the template, fill it up as everyone. So the first thing, as the demand has been growing dramatically, try to differentiate yourself. And that's why I mentioned whatever you have a strong LinkedIn, LinkedIn or a Tableau Public or any other result of your work that you can add to your application. To me, that's how you can differentiate, because it's very hard, guys. Like after you review 100 resumes, very often you're doing that outside hours because you're busy with your work and you want to move fast. And like how much time people on average spend on looking at resumes, I would bet just a couple of minutes. So make it as strong as you can, as honest as you can.
Yeah. So don't know if you have a ton of expertise in this area, but it's very specific to a large portion of our audience. Deepa Sarajam wants to know, how is the hiring process changed for people on an H-1 work visa? And she's asking specifically about sponsorship being a filter in recruitment.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Very often the hiring manager have very minimal influence to it. It's something already defined by HR. So I haven't seen that change too much, but again, I also change companies. So it's hard to me to criticize. I would say that, if you can have, if you have a visa to start right now and you can do 2 years and you're doing great, I mean, I hope you're not being I hope you're still considering regardless of the visa situation. The companies know that they're going to have to make investments in terms of converting to the permanent resident or sponsoring visa. It's okay. For large organization, the costs are not too material. It's about dealing with the process and having the right candidate. So as far as I know, if you're top talent and if you're developing well, chances will come.
Okay. And so last one before we cut to the video, Pooja Chavan, the data mom, asks, when analyzing a resume of a potential candidate, does an extended career break matter? She actually took time off to have her children, and then I think she's been out of the workforce for 8 or 9 years, been upskilling lately.
No, I mean, I don't think so. I mean, it's I always say, like, a lot of people and my last 2 jobs are in Swedish companies where the parents take 2 years out, both the mom and the dad. So I don't think it's a problem. It's a kudos for my current organization. They hire a lot of people in this profile, to be honest. And I love when I hear, people take, took a break on their careers to take care of their family. Like, that's the most important thing in life. And now they're coming back. So it's important that what you did, what are you doing to come back? I mean, what are you developing and what has changed since you took a break and now you're trying to come back? But I just hope, I trust that companies are doing like a fair and ethical job by keeping everyone, besides you took a break or not.
All right. So John David, I think you got to cut me back in on the screen sharing permission.
All right.
Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah.
All right, Al, you're good to go to share.
Yeah, and I bet you have a unique perspective working for companies headquartered in Europe. So yeah, I know there's much more permissive there for career breaks.
Hey Fabio, Abe Diaz here, one of the many awesome super fans of the podcast. My question is, for someone who loves analytics and finance, what do you think is the best approach for someone trying to break into both of those fields simultaneously? Thanks.
Did you get that?
Yes, perfect.
Okay.
That's a great question. I mean, it's important, in my view, that you're able to develop on both areas somehow, right? What's the most traditional way of you getting very involved with finance? Is probably via like schools or masters or courses that you're doing, demonstrate your passion. The second them is via data analytics and the tools, learning all of that. So basically, the future of finance, in my opinion, and now is becoming the present, is that you don't differentiate anymore about finance and analytics. It's so embraced and so together that they go hand to hand. So again, just keep developing on both areas, having good, strong foundation on both of them, and pretty sure great opportunities will come.
Yeah, I'm going to chime in here. One thing that you could also do is, I was a treasurer for a local nonprofit for 2 years. So I got hands-on finance experience, managing the budget, presenting it to the board. So you can get a little bit creative in terms of, well, actually, Fabio, would you consider that legit finance experience?
I mean, for an entry level, I would. I mean, obviously, if anything more senior probably requires experience. But again, if you're an entry level, that's an outside project or just extracurriculars thing that you're doing. Certainly, just be careful. And finance is very broad, of course. So depending on the role you're trying to get, when I think finance, I think more in my word, perhaps on the financial planning, business controller side. Okay. Obviously, if you're getting into accounting and tax, that might require more specific knowledge, perhaps a certification, CPA or something else. But is the mix, if you have a mix, you're a strong candidate nowadays.
Awesome. Al, so did it kick you off?
Nope, just cut back to you guys.
Hello everyone. So my question would be that how can one person, if they have like their business knowledge or financial knowledge, so how can they take advantage of it in an analytics field? So how can I use my business knowledge in analytics field? That's my question. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry, it was breaking up. Do you guys get it clear?
So the question is, how can I leverage my business knowledge or acumen to get into the analytics space?
I mean, I think it's a natural progress because the data in the world is just growing. The challenge that we have today are much more complex. The speed that we need stuff is much faster. So if you need to answer questions from a business perspective, you need to have those skills, So to me, it's a natural progress. You cannot just open now and say, hey, yeah, I mean, we're only going to look at sales when we close the month, right? So, and then I'm going to go and I'm going to do a pivot table and I'll have my answers. It is not the case anymore, right? You need to basically look at data in real time. And if you need to do that, you need to have tools that not only is going to be plugged at 10,000 rows, but very often in 10 million rows. So there's no way, to me, in a very modern finance environment or business environment that you need those tools and you need those skills to answer the questions that the business needs you to answer. So there's no way to separate, in my opinion.
Oh, okay. So I guess let me pivot the question a little bit. How would, in the interviewing process, so like, you were asking Christina questions earlier, how can you showcase your business acumen? Is it just telling specific win stories or like?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
I got your point. I would say my question when I said, hey, how you have influenced a decision based on data and analytics, to me, that's what I mean at the end of the day, I mean, going to the data, scrubbing, creating tools are great. Creating mathematical models, statistics, forecasts, that's great. But if you cannot deploy that and influence the business, they have limited value. So, and sometimes it's okay, depending on the job that you're trying to apply, if you're just like a supporting and creating projects, but not analyzing the data. So to me, it's like trying to demonstrate how you have used any data to influence a decision to steer the business or to steer a project, whatever it was.
So I guess the way that I would advise people to communicate that is that if you're talking about projects that you've had, like Christina was talking about her experience with the nonprofit, explaining the broader context of why they're doing the analysis, I think that is how you can communicate multiple things. So number one, you can communicate that I understand how nonprofits work and how, what the challenges they're facing. And then number two, I know how to solve those challenges with data. So I think that's like how you can kind of just nail that specific type of question.
Yeah, I fully agree. And you gave Christina that feedback. Okay, we did this, that was the goal, that was the output, this is how much money we saved, this is how much money we generated with the decision, this is what changed after we implement that. So a great point for sure.
Awesome.
All right, last one.
Hi, Fabio. Daniel Hall here, the economics professor who also teaches analytics at High Point University. Thank you for coming on to the show. I noticed on your LinkedIn profile that you completed an MBA at University of North Carolina at Greensboro last year, and I was wondering if, having gone through that experience, if you look any differently at people who have a graduate degree versus those who do not, or do you look for different things in those analyst candidates? Thank you.
That's a great question. Let me think on how I answer. I mean, I did my MBA, and a lot of people do. It's important to know why you're doing this, what you're trying to get out of it, and be very clear. So very often I'm not to limit, okay, the person needs to have an MBA. No, I mean, even today, I believe that when I was doing my MBA and I was looking at the Master of IT agenda, that was just complementary, that the Masters of IT would be as strong as the MBA to the finance world as I am. Because on IT, I was looking at the topics: blockchain, cryptocurrency, data analytics, data visualization, statistics, like so amazing, right? That's life on finance. So to me, it's important, not about the three ladders. It's about, hey, what you have developed and what you're looking to learn next. Some people just opt for, hey, I mean, I'm going to do a real life MBA that I'm going to jump on practical work, and you're going to learn as much as you're going to be sitting on a classroom 8 hours per week. So to me, it's, don't focus about, hey, I'm doing the MBA because I need to have the three ladders in my resume. I wouldn't see tons of value on that, and probably it's tons of money for three ladders. I would focus more what you're trying to get in your career right now, what type of knowledge you want to build, what type of skills are you trying to develop over the next 1, 2, or 3 years, and therefore that's how, whatever is MBA, whatever is watching 100 YouTube, learning 10 different tools, that's the answer you need, is what you're trying to do and where you're trying to get.
But as a hiring manager, do you feel like those who have MBAs, do they have like a specific way that they think, or?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't. I mean, I don't. To me, is the same way that someone comes to me and say, in the last 2 years, I did these projects, extra hours, the same 8 hours that you'd be spending, and that's how I develop myself. So depend on what the recruiter is looking for. But me, I have never get in a situation I say, oh, if you don't have MBA, you're not. I'm not even considering you. I don't think on that way. To me, it's learning, and the learning path is just like is different and unique to every single individual.
Well, okay, so something that I've heard from the audience a lot is that applicant tracking software will filter out your resume if you don't have a master's level degree. Does your company work like that, or is that maybe for just senior level positions?
I never heard about it. I mean, honestly, when I'm posting my jobs, I always ask the HR to not filter anyone, that I want to see all the resumes. But yes, I mean, the hiring manager can say that, hey, I don't want to see anyone that doesn't have a master's, or someone that doesn't have a CPA, I mean, I think the hiring manager and the HR, they have that option if they want. I've never done. I mean, I really like to scrub every single application that I get. So, but it's, maybe what I'm trying to say is it's unique to the hiring manager.
Yeah, and then I guess let's you kind of hinted at this. What is, if you don't mind me asking, what is your specific motivation for getting an MBA? I think that this is an interesting question for you as an analytics manager getting an MBA. Like what is your motivation? Are you looking to get into like senior level?
No, I mean, I think the reason I did my MBA is because we cover business in general. So we need to have strong fundamentals on all the areas, from marketing through accounting, through statistics and analytics. So to me, that was one of my goals, was to broaden my knowledge a little bit. as you notice, I'm not a native English speaker. So I say, okay, it's also a great opportunity for me to develop my English skills. I mean, there's a lot of writing and help me a lot with the paperwork that I need to write in my job, the business cases and all that. I wanted to networking with people. So these were my goals with the MBA. And then on my elective, I was narrowing more, shifting to IT, project, data analytics. So I think it was a great development for me, and I think I achieved what I was trying to get from day one.
Awesome. All right, Al. So that's the last one.
But I got one more thing for you. It's not a question though. So I just want everyone to appreciate my shirt. This is if you can see it. There you go. This is from Matt Bratton, so figure I'd give him a free advertising.
Nice.
He just had those made up.
You're gonna send me one of these, Al?
Yeah, we'll send you one for
Awesome.
sure.
Awesome. Well, Fabio, thank you so much. I feel like this conversation was a natural extension of the last one, because also too, I was uncomfortable in the first few in-person interviews. I've gotten a lot more relaxed. Also, I think the show's gotten a lot more three-dimensional. Like we're bringing other people in and we're having a conversation. I mean, it feels kind of like a group hang, which I'm really glad that we're kind of cultivating this overall atmosphere.
Yeah. No, I agree. Thanks for having me. I send the show, and I ask a lot of people during the interview or mentorship process. I say, hey, if you want to get some tips on how to shore up your resume or where to develop, like follow these guys. Make sure that you take some notes, that you apply some of the things that they're saying, because that's real life, guys. And I think that's great. The first time we met and we were talking about, hey, that you come and you're telling me how you tell students, you need to have a strong resume, build a LinkedIn, and Tableau Public is important. And then people from organizations are now telling that they do all the things that you're telling them, right?
Awesome.
So it's real life, when you say that, it's not for them to have a good grade, but it's because it might be what is going to differentiate you during the recruitment process or even doing your professional career. So thanks for having me again. It was a great chat, and hope I was able to share some of my experience with you guys. Again, there's no right or wrong. Every single department, every single organization is different. But that's how we have been approaching things recently.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you sharing your perspective on things.